Oh, flip, my cam's not working. God damn it. Right, okay. Wait a second. Turn that off. On. Right, activate. Well, this is a typical Ministry of Horror stream. Hi, Jelleray. I see also Lee's in the chat. God damn it. Can I close this and reopen it without the stream being affected? 1 second. Okay, apparently not. God damn OBS. Crimson Mail, hey, oh boy, tech issues. Oh my god, OBS does this thing where half the time it turns on with the cam on, other times it doesn't. Let me try some jiggery pokery. Just deactivated it, reactivating it. Oh, hello, my goodness. Apologies for podcast listeners. You'll probably be none the wiser, just thinking, "What's all this? What's all this at the start?" But apologies, the camera's on. My goodness, it's been one of those weeks, guys. Good evening, ghouls and fiends. That's what I normally say to start the show. Welcome to the Ministry of Horror. Well, we've got an interesting show tonight. So originally we were going to be doing the X-Files Home watch along. But due to unforeseen circumstances, scheduling conflicts, wires crossed and all that, we won't be doing that tonight, which is a shame, but we've got some news. There's no book club as I'm trying to finish The Ritual. Basically, I had an accountancy exam this past Monday, and I read enough accountancy text in the space of 3 days to have read The Ritual cover to cover at least twice. So I was kind of burnt out. I did try and get in some films for review, but I'll be honest, there doesn't seem to have been that much horror recently, either coming out on streaming, like new horror, or available to rent or buy. So it's been a bit of a dull week for that. There's been a new kind of a rotoscope fantasy film on Shudder, but it doesn't really look horror. It looks interesting, but it definitely doesn't seem to be much kind of horror. So no reviews tonight or book reviews. But we have got a very bumper section coming up. So whilst we don't have the watch along, the main event of the show, as you may have seen from the title, we're going to be looking at the Halloween franchise. So fortunately, I had one of my good friends, Dean Jovi, no relation to JBJ. He came to visit the weekend, and we did the very first in-studio discussion. A little interview at the start, and then looking at the Halloween films. And yeah, it was a really good chat. It's going to take up quite a chunk of time, which I guess with no reviews to discuss is probably a good thing. But we do have some news to go through. So starting off with this week is April the 1st in, I don't know the calendar, Friday, which is April Fool's Day. And April Fool's Day is like anything, like Halloween, Valentine's Day. It's an area that is ripe for horror. So we're going to have a quick little look at some prank-filled films that you could watch this April Fool's Day. This comes from bloodydisgusting.com, as does most of my news. 5 prank-filled horror films to stream for April Fool's Day this week. Slaughter High is on Roku or Tubi. High school outcast Marty is subjected to sexual humiliation through a vicious prank, but doesn't stop there. After a coach interrupts a bout of bullying, Marty is given a poisoned joint to distract him while other students set up a prank involving an exploding science experiment. Jesus Christ. Naturally, it goes horribly awry when a fire breaks out and Marty bumps into acid, disfiguring him. He seeks revenge during a school reunion. The pranks are all fun and games until people get maimed and slaughtered. And let's face it, Slaughter High shows how unpredictably the target can react. Not seen it? Sounds good. We've also got The House on Sorority Row, which is available on IMDb TV, which is part of, I think automatically part of Prime. It's decent. It's free. Does mean you have to watch adverts. I haven't experienced what that's like in a film, but in TV series, it's not too bad. But it's free, you can't really complain. It's on Roku and Tubi. For the graduating group of sorority students who want to party, an uptight house mother who puts her foot down causes them to devise a prank that they hope will change her mind through fear. Instead, the house mother winds up dead. When the sisters forge ahead with party plans anyway, the body count starts mounting. For these girls, they learn the hard way that the house mother had their safety on her mind, and their irresponsible prank leads to certain doom. It was also remade in 2009 as Sorority Row, which heard of, not seen. Hi Mel, and hi Meryl in the chat. One Dark Night is on AMC Plus, IMDb TV, Pluto TV, Roku, Shudder, and Tubi. Julie wants to be friends with a popular trio of girls known as the Sisters. She's unaware that one of them is jealous that she's dating their ex, so she accepts their initiation task of spending the night in a mausoleum. Julie is shy and skittish, so the sisters plan several gags and pranks to scare her so she'll flee in terror. Too bad the mausoleum happens to be the burial place of telekinetic psychic vampire Raymar, and Raymar doesn't want to stay dead. The sisters learn that ill-intentioned pranks come back around in the worst way, but poor Julie suffers greatly too. Man, that sounds pretty good. One Dark Night, that one. Scare Campaign on Prime. Scare Campaign refers to the fictional hidden camera prank show where the cast and crew set up elaborate schemes to scare their targets silly on camera. However, the hijinks are becoming so involved that it's getting dangerous. When a rival web series threatens to usurp their ratings and they're encouraged to up the ante, things get deadly quick. Writer-directors Cameron and Colin Cairns first lean into the narrative expectations, then subvert them. The film's a lot of fun and kills are delightfully bloody. Again, not heard of this one. But the next one, the last one on this little list of prank-filled horrors, hey Fran the Cannon, is Joyride. Now, for the life of me, hopefully chat will remember the English, the UK title for this, because it wasn't called Joyride in the UK. And annoyingly, it hasn't mentioned what the other title is here. Joyride is available on Stars, and it stars, God, I'm awful with names, Steve Zahn and Paul Walker. Candy Cane. Hey, anybody know a Candy Cane? Playing a prank via CB radio during a road trip, college kids act as a seductive female truck driver. They lure an unsuspecting male truck driver to a motel room and find they've chosen the wrong victim to humiliate. That truck driver, Rusty Nail, spends the rest of the film hunting down his pranksters to enact vengeance. That's a fun film. That's one of those late 90s, early 2000s thriller horrors. It's definitely one worth a watch, but for the life of me, I cannot remember the UK title. If chat knows, help me out. But definitely, they all sound pretty good, so I'm gonna Roadkill. Thank you, Fran the Cannon. Yes, it's definitely one worth checking out. Now, I dropped the trailer for this last week. It came out the day after the show, but it's the trailer for A24's Men, directed by Ex Machina director and writer Alex Garland. The trailer that has now dropped, and we're in for one mind-bending journey with no shortage of Rory Kinnear from Penny Dreadful. The official plot synopsis: in the aftermath of a personal tragedy, Harper, played by Jessie Buckley, retreats alone to the beautiful English countryside, hoping to have found a place to heal. But someone or something from the surrounding woods appears to be stalking her. What begins as simmering dread becomes a fully formed nightmare, inhabited by her darkest memories and fears, in visionary filmmaker Alex Garland's shape-shifting new horror. Hey, good evening to the Gruff. How's it going? I'm just going to drop the link in the chat for the segment on Bloody Disgusting with the trailer for Men. It definitely looks pretty weird. It looks pretty weird, but it looks pretty interesting. Next up, now this is kind of good, but also I don't know what that means for this film's box office. So the news has dropped that Ty West and A24's X, which I've spoke about a number of times on here, and I've still not seen. It's going to be slashing its way onto Blu-ray in May. It's scared up an 8.7 million at the box office so far, which is pretty good for an independent horror. I don't know what the budget was on it, but you know, for little-known non-franchise horrors, that's not bad. I hope it is a success because I do like Ty West. The Gruff will give it a watch. I'm really looking forward to seeing it. Turbo Chic, hi as well. This trailer for Men is Insane, says Fran the Cannon. But yeah, the film should be out digitally sooner. Now, I had hoped to see this in a cinema. I don't live near any cinema since I've moved out to the middle of nowhere, and tried to sort of arrange a viewing with some friends. Hasn't happened yet, but it's going to be coming out on digital pretty soon, which is pretty cool. I'm excited for that, but I hope that that's not like a rush, and that the film is as successful as it should be. From the sounds of it, it's very good. Also, I'll drop the trailer for this in the chat. Duel trailer has been released. It's Karen Gillan has a fight to the death with her clone. Again, it's from Bloody Disgusting, written by John Squires. In the wake of landing a massive deal out of Sundance, RLJE Films is getting set to release Duel from director Riley Stearns, a genre film starring Karen Gillan and Aaron Paul. Okay, let's just go for the little brief on it. Collider has shared the official Duel trailer today, giving us a good idea of how this wild premise will play out. The premise, you ask? Well, Duel is set in a world where people can have themselves cloned when they're about to die, and Karen Gillan plays the character at the centre of the tale. She has herself cloned, but then realises she's not actually dying anymore. The solution? The two are forced to fight to the death, leaving only one of them alive to walk the earth. That sounds interesting as hell. I'll drop the link in the chat, but I'm always for original films. Maybe going on a wacky route or an oddball route. I mean, I've not watched the trailer yet myself. I only saw this a couple of moments ago, but definitely want to check out. What else have we got? Now, this I'm interested in. Horror adventure Insomnis is receiving a PlayStation 5 enhanced version and a physical edition. I've not even heard of this game before, but it seems like it doesn't say when it was originally released, but Sony Interactive Entertainment, España, and Path Games are releasing the Long Night edition of Insomnis for the PlayStation 4, and they've also announced that they'll be receiving an enhanced version on the PlayStation 5 on May the 31st, as well as a physical European release. It's also available on PC via Steam now. I may have to check this one out. We've started doing MOH games, horror games. We're going to be playing through The Condemned. I don't know if I'll be doing a stream this week. I don't want to commit to the gaming on a regular basis because things pop up, We've all got things that we're doing. But it's definitely one that I want to see through to the end. And considering I'm playing it on easy mode, I've not really got an excuse to finish it. But yeah, I will probably check that out, maybe during the recorded segment. Fran the Cannon. For fans of horror games, the trailer for The Quarry looks good, with David Arquette and Lynn Shay, made by the guys that did Until Dawn. Yeah, it does look interesting. I'll definitely be checking that out. I do play quite a lot of those games, like the Lost Pictures anthology. So yeah, The Quarry looks pretty interesting. We've also got Rob Zombie has shared new photos of the Munsters reboot cast. We don't know the date yet, but we do know that it's going to be getting a PG rating, so I'm going to be interested to see what kind of dialogue Rob Zombie can write for a film hitting a PG rating. Now, I love Rob Zombie's music, and I love the aesthetic of his films. But as you will hear a bit later on in the Halloween segment, I'm not a massive fan of the dialogue he writes for characters. Like, I'm no prude, but not every word has to be effing and jeffing and C-bombs. It's not necessary. Write some protagonists that we can like. So while we continue waiting for a release date for the film, Rob Zombie has again taken to Instagram to share a new photo from the set of The Munsters, giving us a fresh new look at his reboot cast. I'll drop it in the chat. It's got his usual kind of cast of actors. Make of that what you will. Like I say, I want to like more Rob Zombie films, but I find it quite difficult at times. We'll see. I'll watch anything with an open mind. And finally, Sons of the Forest. The release has been pushed back to October 2022. Sons of the Forest is the sequel to The Forest. It's a game that I randomly picked up a year or so back, like £4.99 on PlayStation. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. It's pretty damn scary. I like the building aspects, which I never thought I would. Normally, any sort of crafting game just puts me off because I don't have the patience for it. But the crafting is good. It's a good game to play with mates, and it's sketchy as hell when you're going through a cave and you can just hear cannibals screaming at you, or suddenly the pitter-patter of a cannibal or some massive mutant running up on you. Now, in spite of the trailer, this again is from Bloody Disgusting, published by Mike Wilson 6 hours ago. In spite of the trailer released last November announcing the release date, developer End Night Games has made the decision to delay Sons of the Forest. It was originally scheduled for release on May 20th of this year, but the game has now been pushed back to October 2022. Endgame took to Twitter with the announcement saying that the May 2022 release date for Sons of the Forest was overly ambitious. While the developers didn't outright state the reasoning for the delay, the statement alludes to the team's visions for Sons of the Forest being behind the decision. I'm all for games being delayed. I think there's an argument that could be said for games being announced too early. CD Projekt Red recently announced they'll be making a new Witcher game, which is great because I love The Witcher 3, but at the same point, the Cyberpunk 2077 game had a lot of issues. Some people finding it completely unplayable to begin with, some having game-breaking glitches, and it's only really now recently been rectified, like a year later. It does kind of seem like a bit of a PR thing. So I'd kind of, for me, prefer games to be announced kind of like the Guardians of the Galaxy, like 6 months out or whatever it was, and it comes out ready to play. So Sons of the Forest, they maybe announced it a bit too early, considering how long it's taking, but at the same point, I would much prefer a game be released finished. Complete game, because the price of games these days, you're paying a lot of money, you want to be able to play it out the box or straight from the download. Fran the Cannon says, just seen Jessie Buckley, who's in Men, is also going to star in the new Dark Anthology game. That's awesome. She's a talent, really, really coming into the forefront. I think I first saw a film of Jessie Buckley's on Prime a couple of years ago called Beast. It's kind of a indie dark drama thriller. It's not horror, but it's quite good. It's worth a watch if you're a fan of the actress. I don't know who the director was, but it's a decent dark drama for sure. That's really it for the news tonight. Like I say, we haven't really got any reviews. Disappointing week for films to watch. But that now brings us to our next segment. It's a segment where I will be... It's pre-recorded, which worked out. I was going to be doing this pre-recording for a show in a couple of weeks' time, but as mentioned, unforeseen circumstances, it's... I thought someone was knocking the door, but it was just my dog headbutting the wardrobe. He's mental. He's crazy. But it's now been quite fortuitous that we can go into this. So I'll be having a little interview, discussion with film horror actor and musician Dean Jovi. Check out his stuff on YouTube. I think it's just youtube.com/Dean Jovi, I believe. No relation to John Bon. Yeah, we had a great chat. Now, I will just preface this is a pre-recording, so I need to dip out for a bit, have to go cut the grass. No problem, Mel, no worries. I'll be playing it. I will be here in the chat throughout. I may take some breaks to go do the drying up, maybe take a shower, maybe make my lunch for work tomorrow, but I will generally be here in the chat. But yeah. And my dog is attacking his bed. Brilliant. With that in mind, let's now throw it over to me. Saturday afternoon. Good. Well, I don't know. It's the afternoon here, but it's going to be shown in the evening in a few weeks' time. Welcome to the Ministry of Horror. This is a pre-recorded segment, and I am joined, as you can see, in person for a change. With me is my friend, musician, and actor, Mr. Dean Jovi.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome to the show, Dean.
Thank you for having me.
How are you today?
I'm good, actually. It's a nice day today, isn't it?
It's very
lovely
nice
and sunny.
At the time of recording, part of me kind of thought, do I say this is news? But technically it is part of the horror realm. There's a film that's recently been released called Root. Oh, what the hell's it called? I think it's called I've even completely forgot the Foo Fighters film. There's a Foo Fighters horror film that they've recently released, but today, the 26th of March, the news broke that Taylor Hawkins has passed away at the age of 50.
It sucks, man.
I, it's always a weird thing to say, but I mean, I've never really been a huge sort of Foo Fighters fan, but that's no age to go at all. And he always seems like a really cool guy, very talented musician. So it's a huge shame. And
Lost to the music industry.
yeah, I swear the last few episodes we've had people dying as part of the news, so it's a real bit of a dampener. But yeah, this is fresh today, so yeah, that's kind of occurred today. Now Dean, I have to kind of mainly face this way. It's a very directional microphone, so I don't want to be kind of cutting in and out every time I do that. Every time I have a guest on, I generally like to understand their horror origin story, for want of a better term. Like, for you, what kind of drew you into the horror genre? What's like your earliest memory of being a fan or becoming a fan of horror?
Well, basically, when I was quite a young boy, before I should be watching horror films, I caught a glimpse, and I think it was on Channel 4. I'm going back to like the mid-90s, and I caught a glimpse of Michael Myers in Halloween, the original Halloween by John Carpenter, the 78 one. And something about that mask intrigued me, but scared me shitless at the same time. That I don't know if it was you couldn't see the eyes, it was just a blank expression. But ever since then, I was fascinated with sort of like slashers, and I thought, as I got older, what other slashers are there? There must be more films like this. And then you find the Friday the 13th, and then you sort of step away from that, and you sort of look into, right, what inspired John Carpenter, because both you and I are massive John Carpenter fan. Who inspired him? And you go back to like watching Alfred Hitchcock, the Birds, and a Psycho, and all the other ones, and just think, oh wow, this is like really this is some cool stuff. And then you get into the silly things, like the good silly things, by the way, not in a bad way, silly in a I laugh at these, like Hellraiser and stuff, where it's just so ridiculous and so like out of, it's not really based in reality, but brilliant and so entertaining. So yeah, it was Halloween that got me into horror. Just seeing that glimpse of Michael Myers, or the Shape as he was called in that one, scared me shitless. I'll try not to swear, but fuck it.
It's fine. Now, another kind of question I always like to ask. It can change from day to day. I'm pretty sure I say that on every time that for this question. It's not a definitive ruling, but if you had to pick a top 3 horrors for you right now, what would those 3 horror films, or books or TV shows, whatever, your top 3 horror media, what would they be right now and why?
Well, present that's out now.
Yeah, just in terms of, if you had to say my 3 favourite horrors as at now, in terms of like, because maybe Halloween might be number 1 one day, something else might be number 1. What would you say?
Halloween, always, forever.
Rob Zombie's one, yeah?
Yeah, Halloween too. Oh, bless him. Yeah, the original Halloween. I like the 2018 one as well. I thought that was a good way to turn the franchise, give them Resurrection and other ones before. I really what have I been watching? I've been watching the new Chucky film, the new Child's Play film. I thought was pretty good, with Mark Hamill doing doing the voice of Chucky, which I'm like, oh, can you really replace Brad? What's it? I don't know. He's like
Brad
Dourif. He's so iconic in that role, but Mark Hamill's not exactly unknown, is he?
He's got his voice acting chops.
Yeah, and the third one, I do like the Friday series, and I know this is probably not popular I know that there's a few crummy ones in there, but I like the crummy ones as well, like Jason Takes Manhattan. Again, I remember buying that on DVD thinking, oh, this is going to be amazing watching like Jason knock about Manhattan,
It's like 5 minutes
slashing
at the
everyone
end.
up. Yeah, 5 minutes at the end of him. It's basically the rest of it's on a boat. It's like, oh, kind of been sold on that one.
Yeah, a
So
little
yeah,
bit.
but no, I'll say then for I'm a massive Kane Hodder fan as well. So anything he's in is good.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. Well, I mean, I don't really have any more little kind of questions to throw at you, but I know that, and you can be completely honest here, I'm not looking for any ass kissing. You've done some horror acting roles. How did you find those? So you were in my kind of first directing gig, Devil in the Woods, in a small
Mhm.
role, and then also a film I made with guest from episode 2 of Ministry of Horror, Peter Goddard. Um, Harvest of the Dead Halloween Night as Detective Barver. So, how did you find kind of stepping into working on a horror film?
I thought it was really good experience. Again, not ass kissing, talking straight. It was really good. It was cool to sort of see, like, hear from your side. You hear you like seeing you and Pete of like what you guys do, like to try and make a scene work. What needs to be rewritten, if anything does. What works, what doesn't work. And sort of with a next to no budget, creating something that looks good. Looks like you can put it on Blu-ray, watch it in your room, put it in cinema, wherever. So no, it's really cool. Just learning lines, as you know, is not my strong point.
It's not mine either, don't worry.
But no, it is good, and I enjoyed reading the scripts as well. To try and sort of visualize what I think it's going to look like, or and all that, and then put the two together and sort of think, actually, yeah, that's better than what I thought it was going to be. So, no, it's good. It's really good.
It's always uh, an experience of kind of how you visualize it from reading the script. And then the reality, and the reality often is determined by budget and and location availability. But yeah, that dens be the questions. Now we're going to move on to the main kind of portion of what we're going to be looking at today, Dean. We are going to be looking at a franchise that is near and dear to both our hearts, and that is the Halloween franchise. There are, I can't bother to count them, quite a few films. I think they're in the double digits. They're getting up there. And we're going to kind of work through them in release order. We have a rating scale here,
Cool.
5 being best, 1 being worst. So really, just to kind of break that down a bit more, 5 is that, top tier, best of the best. 4, is it's really good. 3, decent. 2, it's not very good, but it's watchable maybe. And 1, get the fuck out of here. Now we'll be talking about the films. We'll be putting them where we see them in the different brackets, and then when we get to the end, depending on how many films we've deemed to be in the top number 5, will then determine which of those in that top bracket alone is the best Halloween film. So we're going to start from the start, which is 1978, John Carpenter's film, written by John Carpenter with Deborah Hill, who also produced, and that is Halloween. Now, normally I would say we have a discussion, and then at the end of that discussion we put it in the ranking. But I think for this one we'll have the discussion, but let's just put it there.
There's only one place for it. There's only one place for it. As I said at the start, it's the film that got me into horror. It's the film that started the franchise. It's the, again, sort of John Carpenter showing what can be done on a shoestring budget. And Until Blair Witch, I think, was the highest grossing independent horror film until Blair Witch came out.
I think that's
which was
right, yeah.
97, 98. I can't remember when Blair Witch came out.
I think it was 97, sounds about right. Yeah.
So, yeah, like you said, nothing more to be said. It's just a masterpiece.
I was thinking about this the other day, that you could take the general kind of initial storyline of someone in their youth or developing period, has a traumatic event or is part of a traumatic event, years later puts on a mask, kills people. And in any other person, like director or script developer's hands, that's what you probably get. But John Carpenter's created, with his score, with his shots, something that is just top tier horror. It's next level. In someone else's hands, as we do find with a number of the entries in the series, it can't be pulled off. But John Carpenter kind of makes it look effortless. So yeah, nothing more to be said really. The first one goes straight in at 5 out of 5.
Definitely.
That brings us on to one that I find my opinion changes quite a lot on it. So I'm going to be interested, Dean, to hear your views on this. That is the October 30th, 1981 release. Directed by Rick Rosenthal, also written by John Carpenter, Deborah Hill. That is Halloween 2. What are your thoughts on this one, Dean?
I like it. It's not popular view. I don't think John Carpenter even likes it. But I found once I got of an age where I can go and buy horror films and buy box sets and stuff. When I got it was the first, again, obviously Halloween was the film that started it for me. So I brought the Halloween box set and watched Halloween 2. I hadn't seen it on the TV or anything. And I don't know if it was my wanting more Michael Myers stuff, wanting him to go around and see a bit more. It just felt like kind of there's more blood in it. It's a bit more gory, when he gets the lady's head and dunks it in the boiling water and all of that, and the syringes in the eyes, and I like it. A little bit more violent, but it can't copy the first one. But it kind of has that same feel of the first one, which I find as we'll go through, other entries don't necessarily have that same feel. So, and obviously the famous one that made Laurie and Michael brother and sister.
Yeah, so the reason I have different opinions, or my opinion changes on this, I can have it where it comes on TV, or it's recently a bunch of them have gone on Netflix, and I'll watch it and I'll have a great time. And other times I won't necessarily have a bad time, but I'll maybe be a bit more critical than I have previously. So the things why I don't love this film in comparison, not in comparison to the first, but just the other sequels, I found that for me the pacing of it lulls quite a bit in the middle. You've obviously got Laurie's not really in it a lot. It makes sense because of the story, but still our protagonist from the first film is kind of out of it for a good chunk. And really there's one particular moment which on one hand is a cool kill, but on the other hand I look at it sometimes as a bit silly, and that's the syringe lifting up.
Yeah.
I think if that had been his trademark knife, then I wouldn't have thought that's kind of silly, but because it's a syringe, it's like, now we're getting into the kind of superhuman strength realm, which he was strong in the first film, raising the guy up, but that's not impossible. But with a little syringe, I don't know. Like I say, sometimes I will watch things with a more critical opinion. Other times I'm in for the ride. So this one we may have to have a bit of a compromise on score. What are you thinking out of 5, Dean, for Halloween 2?
I thought we meant the music score then. I didn't actually.
I can't remember what the score is. It's decent, I think, on that one.
Yeah. I think it's 3.
Yeah, I'd agree 3. It's not bad.
It's
by
not.
any means.
Yeah. It for me, like I sort of said, it was it's near impossible to match the first one, but that was, it gave me a bit more Michael Myers, and I think that's why I kind of liked it.
Yeah, and we got Loomis is slowly getting kind of crazier as he does in the later sequels, even more so. But you gotta love Donald Pleasance. He's hunting the shape, and it's decent. It's never a bad film.
No,
but
3. I think 3 for me.
Okay, now what's always been a divisive film, and it's a film that I suppose in more recent years has had a bit more of a reevaluation, and I suppose maybe everyone's kind of had their opinions change. I do think people, obviously everyone has their opinions, but I do think people get a bit over the top when they go, oh, well, my favourite film of the franchise is obviously Halloween 3. It's the best film. Oh, it's not though, is it? Like, if you're taking the entire franchise and saying, well, the first one's the one that doesn't have the iconic killer in it, then you're talking shit. That is 1982's, so literally a year later, technically less than a few days earlier. Written and directed by Tommy Lee Wallace, again produced by Deborah Hill, John Carpenter. That is Halloween 3: Season of the Witch. What are your memories? What was your opinion when you first saw this, Dean? And then I guess in later years, if you have rewatched it, has your opinion changed at all?
Yeah, I did rewatch it. Like, the first time I watched it, I think I was just, like I said, I had the box set, so it was kind of like a little movie marathon after, seeing the first one a few times. And I was just disappointed that Michael wasn't in it. I was like, oh, okay, like, that's a little bit naff. Like, I thought it was cool because Tommy Lee Wallace is the guy that actually made the iconic mask in the first one, and I thought that's cool to give him sort of director duties and that. But I was like, it's not. I know Michael Myers is on an advert, so technically he's in all of them, but it's not really in it, is he? And I was like, oh, okay. But then, as I got a little older, a little wiser, and hair started to grow in some really weird places, I actually watched it to not thought of it as a Halloween film. I didn't think of it as part of the franchise. Well, it's a completely separate story. So it's unfair for me to compare. I liked it. I thought it was actually a pretty good story. I mean, it's somewhat dated now, but it was in the early 80s, but I like the feel of it. I like it's got that annoying catchy tune in it, which once you watch it, you just it's in your head for a week. I quite liked it. I thought it was a little bit. It was just fun. It was a nice ride, like you said earlier. It was. I turn my brain off and just watch it and go for the ride. And I thought it was alright. It's not my go-to film though. I don't go and watch it. I've probably seen it 3 times in my entire life. But it's alright. It's alright.
So you haven't got one of those, like I mentioned earlier, when I liken it to having a hipster opinion when it's like the best one is the one that people don't like.
It's not the best one, but it's not as bad as I think people used to think it was.
So it was similar. When I first saw it, I was very much like, "Where's Michael Myers? What the hell? What's this? What's this BS?" But kind of on, I do like it. I think as a kind of a separate film to the franchise, it being its own thing. So I'm just having a look at the levels. The joys of having levels in front of you, they're very distracting. It's got some pretty cool moments, but then it has got some absolutely batshit mental moments, like the Stonehenge rock starting to shoot lasers out of them, and the robots, and that woman gets a face. She's playing with a thing she's found. It shoots a laser beam in her face, and then there's that woman that he meets and he randomly bangs, and then she turns into a robot later on. It's like, it's fun. It's a fun film. Where do you reckon this goes on the score of 1 to 5?
That's a difficult one. That's a difficult one. My first reaction is to say 2, but I think 2 is harsh because it's not rubbish. There are worse films that we'll obviously get to. 2. Let's go 2.
Let's go 2. Yeah, because it's fine. It's fine.
It's not in my eyes. It's not a Halloween film.
Yeah, I think if they wanted to go down the route of doing an anthology type series, or each film being its own contained story, maybe that could have worked. But they made a sequel to Halloween first. I think if you wanted to go down that route, and I'm not advocating for that because I do love some of the later films in the series, but if you wanted to go down that route, have your ambiguous ending of the boogeyman getting shot a bunch of times, falling off a balcony, but then still living, and then that's that story. Go on to something else. If you continue that story and then come back for a third time, but it's completely different. It's a completely different tale. doesn't really necessarily work. I mean, some franchises do it, but I think on a much smaller scale. I mean, Insidious had 2 chapters that had the same sort of story, and then a third was focusing on a different story, but you also had some characters carrying over, whereas this was basically completely unrelated. So, yeah, 2 out of 5. Moving on to what is potentially outside of the first one, maybe my favourite. 1988, directed by Dwight H. Little. A bunch of screenwriters on this one. Darnie Lipsius, Larry Ratner, Benjamin Ruffner, and Alan B. McElroy. Produced by Paul Freeman. This is Halloween 4: The Return of Michael Myers, which also, I would probably say, maybe has the best opening credits of the series.
That is on my notes, Mr. Terrence. That is on my notes. I loved when that film opens. It just captures something eerie, cool. It's not still shots as well. It's actual recording. You see the wind moving things and all of this. And I thought that was brilliant. And then I don't know for why, but it cuts to nighttime raining and an ambulance. I was like, oh, that kind of doesn't really go with the footage we were just seeing. But yeah, I agree. That's on my notes, Mr. Terrence, and I thought that was a brilliant opening. Probably the best one actually, other than the original.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I like it more than the original. Not in terms of the whole film, but opening maybe. I don't know. Maybe, who knows? What are your views then? What's your opinion on Halloween 4 in terms of and I think maybe at this point we could probably start talking about not just the film. But also the Michael. I mean, the Michael in 2 compared to 1 is kind of similar. I mean, it's a bit bulkier. The mask looks kind of a little bit fatter, but I think this is the first point when we've got quite a considerably different Michael. But first, let's talk about the film. Thoughts on the film?
I like it. I think it's the highest grossing, or was one of the highest grossing sequel. I really enjoyed it. The other than the mask, the mask is something I find distracting in all of the films, every single one, because it's not the first one. The newer ones they've done a pretty good job on, but once I kind of get past the mask looking slightly different, I thought it was interesting way to go. That they named Laurie's daughter Jamie after Jamie Lee. I think a bit weird. I remember watching it thinking I really liked it at the time, and then sort of watching it previous thinking maybe I could have thought a bit more of a better story as opposed to just killing off Jamie Lee's character Laurie. I thought it was good. Danielle Harris was brilliant in it as well. Like a kid that can act that well at that age. It was. Yeah, she sort of drew me in, and I thought, yeah, it was good. It was a good film. It was a bit gory, like the bit with the thumb in the head. I thought, well, that kind of shows Michael's brute strength. And it was interesting because obviously after 2, Michael and Loomis kind of you just thought they were burnt alive. They
exploded.
Yeah, so maybe Loomis has got similar powers to Michael, because all he come out with in Halloween 4 was a bit of a scar on his cheek and a bit of a limp. So that's not too bad. Coming out
all right.
Yeah. But I think that was Donald Pleasant he always puts in a good performance, and it was good to see he's slightly coming a bit more unhinged. So in 1, he thought everyone else was crazy, and everyone thought he was crazy, but he wasn't crazy. He was right.
Yeah.
2, he slightly the hinges are slightly coming off, and in 4, they're like, oh, they are proper coming off now. So that was interesting as well. That the writers even thought about going into that sort of depth with his psyche and his character of what will this do to someone? A bit like the modern films where it's like, what would it do to someone having to live with that trauma? But yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I mean, with the Jamie Lee Curtis aspect, It was weird, sort of initially seeing it. I mean, I think when I first saw it, I caught it on the Sci-Fi Channel, and I was very much like, "Oh man, they made a fourth one." I didn't realise because it was days before the internet. Um, and I guess it makes sense because if Jamie Lee Curtis didn't want to return, um, you can't recast her because there would just be uproar. Like it's never really a good idea to recast an established character. Never really works. So what can you do with that? You want to? I suppose they've already created this family lineage in the second one, and so it's like we've got to kind of continue that. What do you do in a sequel? It's the kids, it's the relatives. So that kind of makes sense, and you do feel for Jamie because she's an orphan, and the kids at school are absolute dickheads.
Oh, well, me too.
They're just horrible. Yeah, the mask is one of the worst in this. Not the worst, I don't think, but it's taken like the blank expressionless kind of too far because it's basically just almost flat white with huge eye holes. And the guy I can't remember who played Michael.
Warlock, something Warlock.
Was it Dick Warlock?
Dick Warlock.
Let's have a look. Casting. Oh, just give me a goddamn cast list. Where?
I strangely remember John. Is it Don Shanks? Is in the fifth one.
Yeah,
because he's massive. He's almost.
Oh, George P. Wilbur was this one. It was George P. Wilbur. There was the thing that I always found kind of distracting was I think he did move quite well as Michael, but I don't know if it was the way he played it or just his own personal frame, but he always seemed a bit shoulders up.
A bit rigid.
Bit like, yeah.
Square.
Yeah, so, I mean, I really enjoyed it, and I think the Michael performance is decent. What would you give the film as a score, and then also what do you think of the Michael?
Michael, strange fact just dawned on me that George guy. I think he was the first guy to play Michael twice because he plays him in Curse.
Yes, I believe that's correct. Yeah,
just a bit of geek knowledge there. I will put four because I like the thing with the bit I didn't mention when I was waffling on was the bit with the townspeople as well. Like the town, like we ain't gonna take this shit, like, and then they shoot an innocent person. But it's kind of like I imagine that it's actually quite realistic that a town you would get the sort of job stand pub thinking, yeah, it's gonna smash him up. Like
I think this was the better representation of mob mentality in a Halloween film.
We'll get to that one. I will put this at number 4.
4. And what do you think of Michael? I mean, we haven't got a tier list for Michael, but just general, you know.
Not the best, but not the worst. I think he did just enough. I think the guy that played him was like a stuntman anyway, so he probably had to move a bit like for certain stunts like that.
Oh yeah, there's quite a few moments like that. Yeah.
But I think it was cool. I like the bit in when Loomis sees the ambulance in the water and says no, he's escaped, and then sees him at the petrol station, and then Michael bursts out of the petrol station, sets the whole thing on fire.
Oh, that was an awesome set piece.
That was brilliant, that bit.
I want to give a special shout out in this film to the performance of Kathleen Kinmont as Kelly Meeker.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen Halloween 4, check that out.
and Bo Starr, who played Lieutenant Walsh in Due South. He was brilliant in that as a sheriff. You know, some actors, you kind of think, just being a lieutenant or a sheriff or whatever in police, that's just your role forever.
Yeah,
whatever you can, that's all you're ever going to get cast at. He's that. He's brilliant.
You're just a policeman.
Yeah.
Just a policeman.
He's like, it's his, I'm sure as if it's his daughter or whoever. He's like, calm down. Like, I'm like, what?
Chill out, Dan.
Yeah. What a legend.
Okay, we're going to move on to this is one that definitely my opinion can change on it. Sometimes I do have quite a low opinion of it. And it does, I think it has some good moments. I think they could have easily They could have easily made things better by just cutting out the dopey police music, quite frankly. Released a year later, so another habit of a quick turnaround on a sequel. Directed by Dominique Othenin-Girard. Screenwriters Michael Jacobs, Dominique Othenin-Girard, and Shem Bitterman. Produced by Ramsey Thomas. This was the revenge of Michael Myers, Halloween 5. This is something we've kind of discussed previously on the podcast when it comes to franchises and sequels that recently announced at the time of recording. Scream 6 has been announced for release in March 2023. Scream 5 has proved to be quite a success. Still not got around to watching it yet. I will, because I like the Scream series, but it's not my go-to. Anyway, the discussion we had was that you can have a film become successful or surprisingly successful, and the studio greenlight a sequel quickly. This doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a failure, but if you haven't already got a script or at least a plan in place for a follow-up film, which I'm not saying this is what Scream 6 we don't know at this stage, then you're in a position where you've all of a sudden got a deadline and a release, and you've got to write a film, which isn't easy, cast, shoot, all of that stuff. So they had a huge task here and a quick turnaround to achieve it. And I think this is one of those films that suffers for that. I'll go into my thoughts a bit more shortly, but Dean, what are your thoughts and feelings on Halloween 5?
I like the first half of it because I've seen that it follows straight on from the fourth. So he gets shot, he falls down the well or the cabin, which I remember thinking watching the first random place for that. So the guy throws dynamite down there, explodes, he gets into the river, and then he gets washed down, and then someone takes care of him and stuff, which I didn't think was. It kind of ruins the mystique. The thing with Michael for me was the mysteriousness of him. The how can he be shot so many times and stabbed so many times, still survive, and then showing like, oh, he's actually been damaged to the point where this old geezer's looking after him for a year, and then it's
Halloween.
Oh, it's Halloween. Hey, I better go and take some revenge for fuckers that tried to kill me. I think it's the worst mask in the franchise. Other than maybe H2O, which had about 3 or 4 different masks in it, which I can't rate all of them. But I think it's one of the worst masks in the franchise. And again, the Don Shanks who played, I think it's his name, played Michael. He's massive. And Michael, I think it was the first time we kind of saw Michael heading towards Jason realm, and I didn't quite like that. I like that Michael was a kind of small, tiny little guy that just popped up out of nowhere. He was a shape. The story, I think, introduced the Man in Black, which I'm sure, which obviously we'll get to in the next one, just caused problems. I think they just tried to cram too much mysterious stuff in to try and get a sequel greenlit. The bit where I think the only good bit of it is Loomis. I think Loomis is brilliant because he's proper off the rails in this one. But not my favourite one. I don't think it was. For me, like the bit in the attic where the coffin's there and Jamie gets into the coffin, and you kind of look around and you're like, there's loads of candles lit. Now, Michael Myers doesn't seem to me the kind of chap that would like candles. And it's just weird things like that throughout the film that I watch. Like when he puts on the other mask and he's driving the car and the girl's giving him a kiss and that, and like, that's not... But what's going on up there, Michael? Because in the first one, you would have just chopped her up.
Yeah, the ambiance in the attic was a bit weird. I mean, Michael has the penchant for setting up tableaus, like, you know, with the gravestone in the first film. Like, he does like to... He's a bit weird in that way, that he likes to set up a set up a little show. But then this was like, are you looking to hook up or something, Michael? What's with all these candles?
Can you imagine him just like lighting the candles, just going like, oh no, I need to move it along there.
Deleted scene, I need to move that one along.
Cock Wan or someone goes, no, like you need a bit more feng shui, and I just found it really sort of distracting. It's just a stupid thing to be distracted by. But also, I didn't like him in jail. Like they caught him at the end, and he's in jail, and obviously the man in black breaks down the police station, shoots everyone up, and releases it. But seeing Michael on his knees in jail just seems wrong. Like he's obviously been captured before, because in the first one he's captured and in the lunatic asylum. But I don't want to see that because it ruins the mystique of. I'm like, oh, you caught him quite easily at the end because he just got tied up in all that them chains and that. And then Loomis beat him to death and gave himself a heart attack and died on top of Michael, apparently. Yeah, not my favourite.
No, I mean, I can see the difficulties they had with this one. The fourth one ends quite iconic. The fourth one is quite an iconic ending, but I've never necessarily been that enthused with it. Like it's interesting seeing that the end of it, after maybe it's because she touched Michael's hand and maybe something transferred, which is where I think whatever. But Jamie attacks. I don't think she kills. I think it's clarified in the fifth one she didn't die, but attacks her adopted mum. Has the masks on, has the scissors. Now we jump forward to the fifth one, which is a year later. The telepathic stuff, not really a fan of. My view with films is I either like a film to be a paranormal film or to be a realistic slasher. When you start getting partway through a franchise and it's transitioning into that way, I think be all or nothing. Funnily enough, I quite actually like the whole Cult of Thorn bollocks. I find it quite schlocky, but I like it. But with this one, you've got Danielle Harris's character Jamie is mute for quite a bit, which I just found quite irritating. Just when she's all like, just bloody talk. I found that kind of annoying, but at the same point, I like Loomis just not giving a shit and being like, "Come on, Jamie, tell me what are you trying to say?" And it's like, well, she's not spoken for a year. I don't think she's going to talk now. With that annoying little dopey kid that's like clearly in love with Jamie, and there's some weird choices. And then you've got Jamie's sister, who was great. That's funny.
Ellie Cornell.
Ellie Cornell. She was great in Halloween 4. She was a great kind of pseudo Laurie Strode type character, like your final girl. She gets done dirty in this. She kind of came across a little bit more bitchy, which just didn't seem like her character. She had to veto her death scene because I think originally she was going to get the knife or a phone put down her throat, which probably at that time graphically wouldn't have looked very good anyway. And also it's a bit grotesque for a character that you've rooted for an entire film to then have that sort of death.
I can't remember what it was. Was there like a fallout or something with the producers or the studio? Like, I can't remember what it was, but yeah, she didn't last long in the fifth one.
So I think she was one of the earliest kills. And also talking about the opening, this is where they wanted to dally with the idea of supernatural, so they filmed a bunch of stuff. The original opening, it wasn't a hermit. It was like a Satanist or something, or an occultist, which they then thought, oh, okay, instead of going down this route, we'll just have some random guy that lives in a shack outside town. I don't know what's more normal, what's more realistic. An occultist, because of the route they went down. But I guess, I don't know, I'm not going to try and put too much logic behind it. I do think this has some good kills. I mean, the scene where Michael's got that big farming scythe.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's very cool. I hated Tina, and I think replacing Ellie Cornell's character, or kind of role almost with this Tina role. I don't know. I thought Tina was a bit of a dick.
I agree. I
Yeah.
didn't. I could not warm to her.
You had a couple of policemen as well who basically seemed like. I only watched it again recently, having not seen it for a very long time, but they kind of seemed like a version of Martin Cove's character and this other guy from Last House on the Left.
Mm.
I mean, there's one thing having kind of comic relief characters in a horror. It's not the worst thing. Sometimes it's good to alleviate the scares with some humour. But the fact they had dopey music every time they were on screen, it was just like, what is this a serious film or not? I mean, it's Halloween 5: The Revenge of Michael Myers. I don't think you can look too much into it. But what do you reckon score wise?
Score wise, I don't think it's it's one or two, isn't it? And I don't know which one it sits more. I think one.
Really?
Yeah, I think one. There's just too many. I can't watch it again because I don't know for why. Like I said about the candles and this, that, and the other. I picked too much out of it. Like I just picked too many faults with it.
So you don't think?
Hang on. So what ones? Hang on. So let me. All right, let's put it two. I think two actually, because I'm just looking at the other ones in the franchise that will be in number one.
Yeah, it's not great. I think push it back a year or two and really kind of think about the script. But I mean, this is an era where it's all about making money, and fourth one was a kind of an unexpected success. Where it showed the studio how much people like Michael Myers, and so they kind of rushed it out and done some characters dirty, made some stylistic and creative wrong missteps. Yeah, it's got some entertainment value, I do think, but it's definitely one of my least watched entries in the series. Now, for one that for some reason I actually really like, but I think it is a bad film, both versions of it, but I do quite like it.
The Curse.
Yeah, The Curse of Michael Myers. Now, there's a bit of a gap here. 6 years later, 1995. Directed by Joe Chappelle. Screenwriter was Daniel Farads. And
no relation to Dave.
No relation to Dave. And the producer for this and the next two films was Paul Freeman, who also produced the fourth one, but not the fifth. I don't know what the hell's going on in my hallway. This is a film.
Which version?
So which
version should we talk about first?
I mean, to be honest, the producer's cut. I want to say the producer's cut isn't canon, but technically now in the current era, none of it's canon.
No, true.
Producer's cut, I think, is interesting, but I don't necessarily think it's better. There's a couple of moments. I don't know. The whole almost D&D dice that Paul Rudd's character uses to stop Michael short, that was stupid. The strong implication that Michael had impregnated his niece, because it's ambiguous in the theatrical, but I mean, if you see the producer's cut, it's pretty clear that he's climbing on top of no more than 16-year-old niece Jamie Lloyd. It's problematic.
Yeah.
So I think let's just focus on the theatrical one.
Let's give a shout out to Paul Rudd, because I think from 1995 to 2022, the year we're in now, the guy has not aged hardly anything.
No, he's made a deal with the devil.
Definitely. And he just seems to be in everything.
Yeah.
Brilliant in the new Ghostbusters film as well, actually.
Yeah, definitely.
The theatrical... I remember I saw, like everyone, I think I saw the theatrical version first, and I think I must have got like a VHS of the producer cut, because the quality, I just remember the quality being the quality of the film, not the quality of the story. The actual picture itself was a bit shoddy in places, when they tried to splice it all in and that.
Yeah.
Again, I thought for me, they seem to have spent longer on the story of it, reintroducing some characters from the first one for Tommy, with Paul Rudd playing Tommy. But one that I like if I turn my head off and just watch it, and I'm like, okay, it's you know, it's got some very good kills in it. It's a bit more explained about the, like you said, the Curse of Thorn, but then I put the other part of me is I don't want it to be explained. Why did they feel the need to explain all this? And that, for me, when I think of number 6 and then I go back to number 1, the contrast in the two films are night and day. Like the I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's attached to the first film because the first one is just in its own world. It seems very detached. Sorry. Yeah. I don't know. It's one that I don't actually really have. I don't think it's amazing. I don't think it's awful. It floats in between that ether of it's alright. Oh, it's a bit naff. Oh, it's alright. Like, do you know what I mean?
I think it's a good popcorn film. It's dated in the style of it's come out in the mid-90s and it's got that almost early MTV Dimension film sheen of the transitions kind of being a bit like which just automatically makes me think of that sort of time period. We don't have Danielle Harris back. There was disputes on salary, and they kind of did her dirty a bit. Not just the character, but her personally. They didn't want to bring her back because she was still in the age range of a child, and when you hire children, it's quite expensive for a production studio because you have to limit the working hours because you obviously can't. It would be classed as child labour to have someone on set young for a long day. And so they'd kind of said that we can entertain this idea of bringing you back, but you have to kind of emancipate yourself from your parents, which is kind of like a divorce yourself from your parents, so you're then an adult.
Did she spend like $4,000 or something doing that? Did she did it, didn't she?
Yeah, she did it. And I think the salary that they were then offering wouldn't even have covered the costs that she'd incurred for that. So she was recast by J.C. Brandy, and because of the role that the character plays in this film, and I think regardless of who was playing the role, they're probably still going to do the same thing. It's probably not as bad to have a different actress playing Jamie Lloyd if they're gonna, her role is to basically have this child and die escaping. It's probably less painful it being a different actress because she's had quite an iconic role in the prior two films. Kills are decent. Michael, from memory, looks pretty chonky in this. He's been eaten at the facility, but his mask's decent. I like the mask.
The mask is pretty good. It's one of the better ones from the first one, I think.
It's good, and I mean you got Loomis. This was his last film. Donald Pleasant's last film. I think he's quite limited to the time that he could spend on set. I don't know entire things about the health conditions at the time, but he was quite a elderly gentleman at that stage. He'd been around for a while. It's entertaining, but it is also stupid.
It's goofy as hell, man.
I mean, you've got this. They start introducing this wider cult. Now, I liked, like you say, the bringing in the other characters. I think the new family were quite interesting. The one now living at the Strode household with the dickhead dad, the daughter who has a son, and the son potentially is going down that maybe murder type route. They sort of hinted it, but then it never really goes any further. There's some good kills, but then you because it's such an amalgamated script, you get this one scene where Michael goes buck wild killing a bunch of random scientists in the research facility. He just absolutely loses it. You then get this one room where there's like embryos in cases. Like, what are they doing here? It doesn't get explained. Michael gets injected with a whole bunch of syringes to try and subdue him in this fight with Tommy. Makes sense, use what you've got available because this guy is clearly, we now know he's powered by this thorn tattoo that he has, But then when he gets his brains bashed in, the fluid then starts leaking out, and I'm like, well, that's not how bodies work. um, what are you thinking score-wise? I find this entertaining, but it is stupid.
It's got to be in the 2. I think it's 2.
Yeah, I'll go along with that. I mean, I find it fun, but I mean, if you just look at the story on the page, it's like, what is this?
Well, do you know, and the thing that always used to bother me was, and I really noticed it in this one, was the Michael's house, or what was it, Michael's childhood house, looks nothing like Michael's childhood house. It's, I get maybe you can't film down the same street, but it doesn't even look remotely close to being it. Whereas, like, Michael's house is the classic, like, box type house. Whereas in this one, it looks really fancy. It's got like this pole, that's all right with me, man. Like,
I'm sure I heard something that someone had bought the house, but in typical, not to say typical American fashion, but they kind of just upped sticks up the house and moved it away. And I think financially, it just didn't make sense for them to try and bring the house back. Well, they probably could have done, but just didn't want to. And this film bombed. It did bomb, and this caused a bit of a gap in the series.
Until Jamie Lee decided it's time to come back.
Yes, 3 years later, and
fuck all the other films after 2.
3 years later, and 20 years later, we have 1998's Halloween, H2O, 20 years later. I always thought, why not just call it Halloween 20 years later? H2O is the thing for water, isn't it?
It's a periodic table of the whatever it's called, of water in it.
Yeah, I mean the thing, or call it H2O, Halloween 20 years later. But Halloween H2O 20 years later has always seemed like a dumb title. But it's 1998's American slasher film, and it is very much a 90s slasher film. Directed by Steve Miner, it stars Jamie Lee Curtis returning as Laurie Strode, Adam Arkin, Michelle Williams, and Josh Hartnett. 7th installment in the franchise. And it was, the story had Kevin Williamson, worked on the story of, I mean, he's done loads of stuff, but let's say Scream, worked with on the Scream franchise with the late Wes Craven. I mean, let's just get into it. What are your thoughts on H2O? How do you see this one?
First Halloween film I saw in the cinema.
Ooh.
I like it, and I still like it. It's one of the few I still like. There's forgetting the mask and the variations of the mask in the film. The story itself is very interesting. It's for me, I think it's a real big shame that I think Deborah Hill's still alive at this point. But it's a shame that her and Johnny C didn't come back and contribute really to it. But I liked it. Again, interesting of the 20 years later, how does that affect someone? Oh, she's a teacher now. She's got a son. She's in this very closed off world that she's created for herself. Great cameo from her mum as well, with the car from Psycho,
music as well.
and then the music, and that for me is just pure gold. I liked it. I thought it was really cool. It wasn't like, I mean, you and I of the age we remember 98, 99. The whole sort of, I call it when American Pie was about to come out and all of that whole era, and you had that's what H2O reminds me of, is just that point in time as well. It's like a bookmark of that cool, like, late 90s, early 2000s just captured it. I love the car that Michael drove in it as well. That's the creepiest ass car I've seen, I think, in anything. It's really, really, really cool, and very young Michelle Williams in it.
Yeah.
Who knew watching that back then how good an actress she was going to become? Josh Hartnett, he was a brilliant actor. I don't know. I think he went away from Hollywood for a bit and come back and did some indie stuff. But okay, just a very talented. Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Like, doesn't last very long in it.
No.
Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was really good, solid film, and I don't know if it's nostalgia, but it might be a bit of nostalgia. But I thought it was great, and the you know, you see Michael come down from the ceiling like with one arm. It's like, man's been working out. And I remember at the time, obviously watching it at cinema, head off. I'm like, that's kind of a good way to close off the franchise. It's a good ending for Laurie. What else could you do for Michael? Yeah, I liked it. Good one.
Yeah, this is probably the second Halloween film that I saw. Like, I think I rented it on VHS. I think
Showing our age, aren't we?
I think it's a decent slasher. It's quite short in terms of run length, but I think that's fine. It's got like a good pace to it. As we mentioned, they had some weird choices with the masks because he's got like 4 and one of them CGI. I really don't understand. I don't think I'll ever understand that. They made the decision to, for the first time in the series, retcon the previous sequels from Part 2, so after Part 2, keeping the dynamic that they are a brother and sister, which is fine, whatever. Originally, they were going to have some mention of Jamie Lloyd passing in some way, in terms of someone in class or a news report mentioning the death of in Haddonfield, of a girl called Jamie Lloyd, which was going to show Jamie Lee Curtis kind of having a moment of a bit of pain. But then, by doing that, you almost, have to kind of acknowledge the whole Thorn storyline, which is kind of problematic in terms of it's just a bit convoluted. And when you're trying to do a big sequel, bringing back members of the original cast, it's quite dangerous to then go, okay, we're going to have to assume that the general populace, the people we want to get butts in seats in cinema, have seen 6 films previously. The first one everyone's going to have seen, it's the most famous, but you're relying on people having seen 2, 4, 5, 6. So I do understand that. I think it's quite a cool dynamic that she's got with her son in this film, Josh Hartnett's character. And whilst I think the other film that we'll talk about a bit later on is a better film, I do think, and this actually came up in the chat that I had with Reanimator when we were looking at the Texas Chainsaw series, I do think that this is a better version of Laurie when it comes to post-traumatic stress than the Sarah Connored Laurie we get in 2018. I do think 2018 is a better film, but I quite like that this is, I guess it makes sense because of the family dynamic, but she's trying to move on. She's created a new identity, almost gone into hiding. But even with that, it's a tough sell, I guess, when you do this retcon route, because as far as we're concerned, the end of Halloween 2, there's a big explosion. Michael and Loomis initially look like they've perished. We know from the opening of H2O, ignoring 4 onwards, that Donald Loomis's character, Loomis, didn't perish because he still worked on his notes, and you get a bit of a voice-like voiceover, which is really cool. It is a great opening credits. But you then have to try and explain, and they don't, although they're trying the next film, which is god-awful, where's Michael been for 20 years?
And
I think without having a scenario of him being caught, like from the first film, how do you explain where he's gone, what he's been doing, and why now? They say at the start he breaks in, he finds Loomis's notes from Nurse Marion, is it?
Yeah.
His nurse, who became Loomis's nurse and is also in the first film. That's how he finds out, okay, Laurie has this new identity. It's all said in the voiceover. But there's still nothing to suggest, well, why now? Why 20 years later does Michael suddenly come out of hiding? It's not a negative at all. But I think when you try and go down this route, holes can quickly emerge. They're not the be-all, end-all, but I think I don't know. I don't know how they could have got around that other than maybe going down the start of the Halloween route by having Michael in some form of coma, maybe something to explain why he's not present, because otherwise that always just sat a bit weird with me. But it's a good film. The ending was really cool. Funny thing with the next film, which we'll score this one in a moment, but with the next film, I always thought it was quite corny, the route that they went down at the start of the next film explaining the ending of H2O, but that was always the plan, which I thought was that part of Laurie signing on, because I think they were discussing doing a sequel whilst making this one, was that she wanted to have that trauma of she thinks she's killed Michael, but she hasn't. She's killed an innocent person. I don't know. I just think we'll look at this on its own. I think it has a great ending, but then continuing it the way they did was kind of crap. So let's round this off. H2O. Let's move on from this. What do you think score-wise for this one?
For me, ignoring the masks, because that does really get on my nerves for watching it. But the story itself, the continuation, the notes at the start, the feel that it does feel like a follow-up from 2. For me, 4. I think it sits right up there with Revenge. For me.
Okay, I will go with that. I'm feeling more a 3, but I will go with 4.
You think 4? You think Revenge? Return, not Revenge. You think Return is better than the H2O?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Hey man.
But we'll go with 4. We will go with 4. This now takes us on to. It's one of the worst. It's probably one of the worst films in the franchise.
I even think the Rob Zombie one's about.
What can you say?
The second Halloween film I saw in the cinema, and I asked for my money back.
2002, 4 years later, Rick Rosenthal directed, screenwriters Larry Brand and Sean Hood, produced again by Paul Freeman.
So getting the director from the second Halloween film back, of Ricky Poos.
Halloween Resurrection.
It's just crap, isn't it? But it's funny enough, it's progressively got worse as time's gone on. Whereas some of them, as time's gone on, they've got kind of, you look back and you think, actually, they're a bit better than I remember. Yes, it's the worst one for me. The worst one in the whole franchise, including the remakes, the reboots, the whatevers. And I get what they were trying to do. 100% get it that, the how long can you carry the Laurie story on for? You're gonna do 20 movies with Laurie and like how can this back and forth between her and Michael go? How long can that go on for? I get it. Busta Rhymes is one of the coolest people in 2002. So let's bring it to a new audience. I get it. You want a new audience. You want the franchise that. But it was just shit. It was just shit.
I'm going to jump the gun here.
Just put it straight in there. There you go.
I don't even want to try and dissect the story. I mean, you've got, as I mentioned a moment ago, H2O. She cuts off Michael's head with an axe. Turns out that actually Michael, I guess, must have known that he's losing the fight. So rather than continue, he crushes a guy's larynx and changes costumes with him. And then that guy is in the back of this ambulance.
It's a paramedic or something.
Paramedic, yeah. And Laurie steals it because she's like, no, this has to end. Can't have this going on. Chops his head off. Turns out it's not Michael. It's this innocent guy. So she's then in the psychiatric clinic. Michael busts in a year later because he has to wait a year. And they have a little tussle. She almost outwits him, but realises actually no, stabs her. She then kisses him. I know it's his mask, but what's the point of that? And dies. So Laurie is killed off. And then they explain Michael's been living in the sewers for 20 odd years eating rats, and a bunch of it's not even YouTubers because YouTube wasn't a thing at that point.
Wasn't a thing back then.
Like a reality webcam series. They're gonna do, a reality show based in the Myers house. He goes around killing them, and then there's a bit when someone is pretending to be Michael and they bump into each other. It's Buster Rhymes. It's just this shit. And then Kung Fu Buster Rhymes kills Michael Myers, who then at the end, is still alive. It's
and why? One of my biggest gripes, which people might think I'm mental. Why the fuck has he got spiky hair in this one?
Yeah, that was weird.
He's busted through. The mask itself was actually a cool looking mask. It doesn't. It's near the original in terms of look. They actually coloured in the eyebrows, but his hair was spiky. And I think, is he gonna fucking gel his hair or something?
Yeah, gone out, picked up some gel.
He likes candles, doesn't he? We've got that from Halloween 5. He likes a candlelit dinner, and he gels his hair now.
It's absolute crap.
I don't talk about it anymore.
No. So we're now going to move on to. This is man. Okay, so 2007. I still do like his music, but at that time I was big into my Rob Zombie. I'd seen House of Thousand Corpses, thought that was great, quite an assault on the senses, and then he kind of refined his style with the Devil's Rejects. Great film. We got Rob Zombie coming on board to do Halloween, which was a reboot of the franchise, remaking the original, but with his own spin. Now, I'll just say a couple of things first with this film. One, this film made me realise that I don't actually think Malcolm McDowell is that good an actor. Not just because his portrayal of Loomis, which I guess is how the character is written, but I don't think I've actually seen him in anything. Even Clockwork Orange, I don't think he's great, in my opinion. Come at me in the comments when this one airs. But his Loomis is crap. There's a weird juxtaposition for me on this one in that I don't like the dialogue that Rob Zombie writes for his characters. He doesn't ever seem to write protagonists that you can get behind because everyone just seems to be grimy. And I'm not a prude. We swear on this show. But does every word have to be fucking? Or the C-bomb, It's just everything just is kind of just dirty. But the juxtaposition is, I do think the first half of his film is stronger than the second half, which is where it kind of adapts. It does his version pretty much similar to the original. It's a weird one. I really loved it when I first watched it, but it was kind of in the same way that the first time I heard Scent Anger, I thought I loved it because it was new Metallica and they'd gone heavy again. But when I then go back to that yeah. What do you think? What do you think about Halloween?
My opinion is very similar to yours. I think I'll give a bit of a pass on this one to Rob because I like the guy, brilliant musician. As an artist, he's I don't have anything bad to say about him. As a person, I think he's great. I know the studio weighed in heavily on this one, and whilst his name is above the title, I don't know why, because it seems in the interviews he's given on like Joe Rogan and all this, he was very tied down. It was an interesting take on the first one to try and explain what contributes someone to become a killer, a serial killer. But I didn't like the dialogue, like the stepdad guy, just being a bit of a perv, a bit of a lech on the younger one, and the younger daughter Judith.
I'll crawl over there and skull fuck the shit out of you, he says at one point.
Yeah. The guy, the actor, I can't remember his name, escapes me for now, but that's an actor, fucking William something, I'm sure it is, but...
William Moseley?
I can't remember his name now. Fucking brilliant actor, but my god, yeah. And then, obviously his wife has got to be in every film, why not? She's nice to look at, so you don't mind too much, but... yeah, you just sort of like, would a mum really put up with her children being in that environment? Like, she's a stripper and stuff like that. So, like, why does she have to be? It just seems for me that it's like, right, you've got an abusive sort of stepdad dad type character. I think it's a stepdad now. I can't remember before, but then the mum's a stripper, and her daughter's a little bit slutty and a little bit. I was like, why does it need all of that? It doesn't need all of that, and you know, yeah, it just tries to explain the origins of Michael turning how he does a bit too much for my liking. I liked it the first time I watched it, but then and then you got the rape scene in there, which for me, I'm like, do I need? Does that need to be in the movie? Like certain things, I'm not against them scenes. I'm not for them either. But if it serves the story, then it should be in. I don't think that served the story. It just seemed like, you can just as easily have the guy walk in and, play with Michael's mask, which, does, and he's like, no. Michael's like, no. And then all of a sudden, Michael's like 8 foot tall, 6 foot wide. They just took it in a weird direction, man. And for me, I liked it the first time I watched it, as you said. I can't watch it again.
No, it's one of those films that I have moments where I think, oh, yeah, I might give that a watch. But whenever I have, I don't know, I just don't stick with it, and I haven't watched it in quite a long time. My opinion of Rob Zombie's filmmaking is, I think he's a great director. He gets some excellent shots, but I don't know if I think he's a good writer. Certainly his dialogue. I don't like his dialogue. So I think it would be great for him to team up or adapt someone's script.
Yeah.
Do that. Like, he has his own unique style, which is, it's cool. It's very much him. You're watching a Rob Zombie film. But I think at the same point that's a bit of a detriment. There's some cool moments in this. I agree with you, Dean, that I preferred. There's a whole argument when it comes to killers of nature versus nurture. There is no definitive. Oh well, it's obviously the upbringing, or some people are just born bad. We've now kind of got two sides of the spectrum. The first film, you have to assume that he is just pure evil. He's just just evil incarnate, essentially, because he does such a heinous thing at a young age. Whereas in this film, it's very much more implied that he is a product of his circumstances, his awful upbringing, and he kind of snaps.
By the way, I'm not looking at my area. I have a dog in between my legs. That probably looks weird. I
don't think anyone would notice until you drew attention to it.
Until I kept looking down. I'm not beating one off, don't worry.
Okay, cut that. There's good moments, and I like the way that they ended the film. Like I say, I kind of prefer the first half before we get to the Laurie story, because Scout Taylor Compton is a good actress, but I don't think she's just so different to our Laurie from before. Sweet and innocent. I know this is his own version, his own take on it, but that's fine. Do your own thing. The original Laurie is better. But I did like the ending with the gunshot. I think that was quite good. That's quite a good way to end it, before they didn't end it that way. But then at the same point, Michael, he's now this hulking beast that it smashes through everything and does everything with his bare hands. It's just, that's not my Michael.
No.
I don't really think there's much more I can say about Halloween, Rob Zombie's Halloween. What do you reckon, score out of 5?
2.
Yeah, it's got some good shots in it. He's tried something different.
And I agree. Like, for me, Malcolm McDowell in this, it was the first time. I don't think it's because of Clockwork Orange and this, that, and you kind of think, oh, he's this really iconic English actor. He's brilliant. Actually, I thought, he's a annoying fucking twerp. But his acting seemed really cardboard, and like, but not just cardboard, but slightly over the top as well. And he almost ruins a good chunk of it for me, with the just overacting of it, and yeah, so 2 for me.
Yeah. This brings us on to the companion piece to this film, which is the sequel. Originally, I don't think Rob Zombie was due to return for the sequel. I think it was going to be 2 French directors, but for whatever reason, their ideas didn't meet with the studio. So Rob was convinced to return. Halloween, his Halloween had been a huge success, but we have 2009's Halloween 2. Now, as you know, Dean, the first time I saw this film, I fucking hated it. And I don't often stop a film. I am quite open-minded, I think. But this one, you had the opening, which was kind of like a... It was kind of like a red herring. It was to make you think that this was an adaptation of Halloween 2, set in the hospital. But it was so over the top with the violence that I was like, oh man, this is... Michael's not this out-and-out rampaging beast. And then it turned out that was a dream, and I fucking hate dream sequences unless it's like Nightmare on Elm Street. But watching it again a few years back now, I can respect it. I think he's done his own... He's definitely gone to the studio. If I'm coming back, I'm doing what I want to do, and it's a very out there film. And his...
I want to give a shout out actually to the kid in the first Rob Zombie Halloween. That guy, that blonde kid, was creepy as fuck. And
Dave Furge or something.
Yeah, what he did a phenomenal. We said what we said about the film, but him, I thought he was brilliant in it.
They had a different kid back in this one, didn't
Yeah,
they?
that's why I mentioned it, because the kid in this one was sort of like a lot more of, if you will, a classic looking normal kid, whereas the first one, he, you looked at him and thought, hey, up, something might be up here. Yeah, no, I think this is very much the Rob Zombie Halloween film.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, like you said, he must have gone to the studio and said, look, if I'm coming back, if you want me back, I'm doing it my way. It's crazy as hell, the whole thing with the white horse, obviously. The mum coming back and she's kind of directing and guiding him. I kind of thought that was pretty cool. And I think I thought it was cool because I detached myself. I didn't have any association watching this thinking of John Carpenter's Halloween. Because for me, obviously, it doesn't stand anywhere near close to being as good. But it's all right.
Yeah, I mean, Laurie, as much as Laurie's a dick in this film, it's understandable because she's had such a traumatic event happen to her. Her parents get butchered in the first film. We didn't mention Danielle Harris returns is the role of Annie Brackett. Again, showing what a great actress she is. She is back in this one, meets quite a traumatic end. We talked earlier about Brad Dourif, the voice of Chucky. He is Sheriff Brackett in these 2 films. So they have some great actors in the films. And I guess on reevaluation, I maybe prefer this. I still don't ever really think I'm going to watch one of the Rob Zombie films. But maybe I prefer this on retrospect to the first Rob Zombie. Because it is very much its own film. It's very violent. But
it stamps on the guy's skull, doesn't he?
He stamps on the guy's skull outside the red, whatever it is, lounge, the strip club. Yeah. At first, I didn't really like what they kind of did with the mask, but at the same point, again, it's kind of brave. He's not always... This mask had aged a lot between the start of the first film and the second half, which makes sense. Although the aging was always, very deliberate, if that makes sense. Like, the lines were got a little bit too clean. But in this one, it's now falling apart off his face. He's like a hobo drifter killer machine. But yeah, it's it's its own film.
If someone hasn't done it, they should cut the. Do you remember the Littlest Hobo?
Oh.
With Michael walking across that field. There's a voice. Keeps on going. That'd be fucking brilliant. I quite like this one as a separate thing. I mean, once I get past the whole, I'm pretty sure at the end of the first Rob Zombie one, Loomis gets his eyes caved in and Michael gets shot in the head. They don't explain that in this one.
So I think with the...
I don't know if there were two different versions.
I think with the Loomis... I think Loomis in the director's cut, it's his eyes, or it's implied to be his eyes. It very much looks like his eyes. It's not like an eye gouging in a later film coming up. It appears that way, but I think in the theatrical, it was more hands on the side of the head with like a kind of crushing sound. It was more like a skull crush, which still, the sounds make it sound like that skull is crushing. I'm not sure you're going to just be alright about that.
Walk it off, Loomis.
Yeah, but Loomis is terrible in this film, even more so than the first, because they kind of play into the fact that he's now been a bit self-serving and self-centered. He's selling the story. He published that Laurie was Michael's sister, which Laurie didn't know in the first film. So she's already in a traumatic place and is then finding out through the news that this doctor who sort of saved her but didn't really, because she ended up saving herself, has revealed that that's actually your brother. So that's also going to play into her mental state, which is good for her character, but also shows how much of a dick Loomis is. What do you think out of 5, Halloween 2?
It's got to be 2 or 3, isn't it? I don't know which one I'm leaning towards, because I think it's slightly better than the first one. Let's go 3.
We can always put it higher than that one in 2.
Yeah, alright, let's do that.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's not as good as...
It's not as good as... No, it's not. I think what would have been better for me is if they didn't have Loomis's character in it all, and they just called him something. If you're going to be that far away from what the original character is, get what they did with Laurie. I don't really have any gripe with that. But if you're going to take a beloved... You kind of got... It's two things, isn't it? Because you've got Donald Pleasance, who was beloved by everyone, global treasure. Then you got the character he played in it, Loomis. He's the one, we kind of appearing over the shoulder throughout the films.
Yeah.
He was our go-to person. He was the one that kept, other than Michael, arguably he was a bigger draw than Jamie Lee Curtis' character, Laurie. To make him into such a fucking dickhead in them 2 films, I think is just wrong. They should have just called him something like Dr. Knob Jockey or something. It's almost like blasphemy.
Yeah.
Don't care for it.
Not a good creative choice there.
No. Sorry, that was a bit... I've got fired up there.
So we jump ahead now to 2018, so 9 years later. David Gordon Green is announced to be making a trilogy, which... So I do like, to varying degrees, the 2 of the 3 films that have been released, which we'll get into in a second. But I always get a bit apprehensive, and it seems to be a very common thing these days when a film can't just come out. It has to be that, this is part of a trilogy. Like, okay, great. I mean, on one hand, it means that technically you're hoping that they've already got a story in place. So in theory, there should be the time and the due diligence to make them a good, concise, each film being its own film, but part of a bigger narrative. But then, what if one of those films isn't a success and the studio goes, nah, we're not greenlighting it? You've then got a film that probably doesn't have a definitive ending, that won't get resolved, or you run the risk of a number of these sequels where the story gets a bit more convoluted. But 2018, David Gordon Green, and
so I'll join you on that, because I think the same, but a slightly different reason. Like when we went to watch Infinity War and Endgame, we come out of Infinity War with Ash, and I remember you guys saying, "Oh yeah, it was good," and I thought it was a good film, but it was pointless because I knew Endgame was coming out.
Yeah.
So, despite all them people going off, and a bit similar to this, once you know there's three films, you watch the first one, and you kind of like, it's very unlikely they're going to kill off Laurie.
Yeah.
They might kill her off in the second one. We don't know, but so how much danger are there, like how much am I going to be invested watching this? Because
Exactly.
I noticed two other films after this, so I just find that I agree with you. Like, it's don't tell, keep it amongst the studio
Yeah.
people. They can know. Don't tell me though. Don't tell me.
Yeah. Do it when the film's ready or when the film's coming out. Announce it then. Don't announce it ahead.
Mm.
But we had Halloween, which title-wise, I discussed with Reanimator when talking about the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre film. Why does it have to have the same title as the film that is a sequel to? It's just confusing. I mean, it's not confusing to horror fans who do the research, but if you're Joe Public and you're going, "Oh, new Halloween film's coming out. Oh, it's called Halloween," I'd assume it's a remake
Have you
because it's
seen
got the
Halloween?
same title.
Yeah. Which one?
Yeah.
What? How many are there?
We're now in a position where we have three films
Three.
called Halloween. But this is 2018. You know, I mean, before we kind of go into the story, Dean, what do you think about 2018 Halloween?
Well, one we went and saw together. I like it. I thought I was very apprehensive, and I think I may have mentioned to you before when we were going to watch it that 40 years, 40 years is a long time. You know, Michael will be in his presumably 60s. You know, Jamie Lee Curtis, bless her, fantastic actress, but she ain't getting any younger. Is it a bunch of geriatric people going to be running around? I liked it though, but it came across really well. Very nostalgic. You know, Nick Castle returned for a couple of scenes to play the shape. You know, so people like us love that shit. I liked it. I thought it was a good story. Brilliant. And again, you know, like they trapped him at the end, so you did kind of think and there's suspense in this one, and I think you know, Rob Zombie ones never had suspense because it was just mindless killing. I think a few of the sequels before, you know, like Curse, Revenge, and Return, lacked a bit on the suspense, whereas the suspense was all part of it. You know, he could be anywhere, and he could be anywhere, and that fantastic shot that was shot in one take, of him going in the houses and all that. That was fun. I remember when we saw that, like, you know, those fucking pricks in the cinema at the time.
Shut the fuck up.
No, it was really, I remember thinking, wow, that is some shot. That to get that and the choreography that blows my mind.
Actually, a bit of cinema magic. It's made to look like it's one take, but
Like the first one when he blinks, but it's a cut, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or no, he puts the mask on, doesn't it? But as it gets there, that's the cut.
That's the cut. Yeah.
So I'm told. Spoiler. But yeah, like brilliant. I just thought it was a good continuation. You know, Laurie had gone batshit crazy. She was preparing for this. She knew it. She was like, "He's coming back. I know he's coming back." You know, she's got a daughter and a granddaughter that have sort of disowned her. The only thing for me was, you know, H2O still looms in my head. I think, well, you had a son there, and you're discounting. You came back to do the 20th anniversary, but you're kind of just getting rid of the 20th anniversary. But the same actress is in this one.
Yeah, we should say this is another new timeline where the second film, Halloween 2, is ignored. So they've done away with the narrative of them being siblings, which again is fine. I get it. It frees up the story to. You don't have to have that tied thing of, oh, he came after her because they're siblings, and they even sort of joke about it in a bit of throwaway dialogue. It's fine. I mean, I like it's not one of those things where I was never that fussed about the revelation that brother and sister.
Mm.
And I didn't really. It was not a big deal for me that they now no longer were siblings.
I thought the English podcaster people, I thought they were they were very well acted because the guy was borderline annoying, and he was obviously supposed to be because
it's British.
it's British. um, but yeah, I think overall the it goes back. It just went back to basics. It had suspense. There's a bit of gore in there and all that. I think from memory.
Oh yeah, he turns someone's skin from their face into a jack-o'-lantern.
Yeah, that's
teeth over the door. It's This for me was the right level of Michael Myers violence. He had some tableaus, although I think they did that a bit more in the following film. So there's distracting noise in my hallway. He was violent, but he still also stalked from the shadows, and that's something that I think does get lost in the next one. But it's a decent film. Like I said, I kind of preferred the representation of Laurie after the first film in H2O. That just made a little bit more sense to me than her being full on cuckoo for 40 years like Sarah Connor. Makes sense for Sarah Connor because it's like the end of the world. This is someone killed a couple of your friends and almost killed you. That'd be traumatic, but it's got to be a point where you get.
Well, that was the other bit I liked about it, and I didn't realise really going into it. Obviously, they it's not really. It just shows how much the world has changed. If Halloween 1978 one was real, he only killed 6 people in it. Like it's not. It's not that horrendous. Like, obviously, it's bad. Don't get me wrong. I haters in the comments, but by today's levels, it's not really anything to write home about, is it? It's not. It's bad, but there's been worse. You got I suppose like Ted Bundy's and all that of the world, Jeffrey Dahmer's and that have done way worse than what Michael Myers did. And I love that they touch on that though, but they're like. It's still part of history, still part of this, and the iconic mask and that, and but I do have gripes with it. Like for me, the Doctor in this, he just pissed me off.
Yeah, I mean, there's things that I liked. Like I liked the kind of little kind of comedic moments because it was quite well written in that regard. But then, the Doctor. I thought it was stupid. So I think it's one of the better, if not one of the best, sequels in the entire sort of franchise. But in a score of 1 to 5, what do you reckon?
I'll put it up there with H2A 4. I think that's a solid 4.
Cool. Now rounding out the Halloween film franchise. Oh, this one's divisive. It got a lot more mixed to negative reviews than Halloween 2018, which generally got mixed to positive. I mean, I'm trying to think of the line of dialogue which first made my eyes roll in this.
Evil dies tonight. Evil dies tonight.
I think it was the first Evil dies tonight, which is when they're leaving the pub. Tommy Doyle. Some of this makes sense to me, right? So Tommy Doyle chumming with Lorne and Lindsay.
Gonna get you, Lorne. Sorry.
That all makes sense. But why are they chumming around with some old nurse that they've never met? That they had no interaction in the first film? Was it part of like a web group of we saw someone who we then found out was a killer much later? They didn't get attacked, really. I mean, they were kids in the first film. It's obviously going to have an impact, but... Bloody hell, get on with your lives. And she's somehow chummy with them. But it's as they're leaving the pub, and someone says something like, "Oh, we're going to round something up. We're going to round..." Someone says one line, and then the nurse goes, "Oh, and evil dies tonight." And it's so, like, people don't talk like that. And that then becomes the catchphrase in the film. It makes a little bit of sense in terms of how people can get riled up, mob mentality. But, oh God, it's annoying. So annoying.
I remember we come out of the cinema, again another film we watched together, and we both said the same thing, that something was missing from it, but we couldn't put our finger on it. I watched it again a couple of nights back on Blu-ray, and I, I, I just don't. I don't think I like it at all. I think that it's worse than I thought it was. Um, there are good bits in it. There's very good bits in it. But you bring back these iconic characters, kill most of them off. You hear that Sheriff Brackett gone. Spoiler alerts on all of these, but
If you're watching a Halloween tier list, I'd imagine you've seen these films.
The I think Lindsay was the only one that survived when the Tommy got killed. I think there's only a few nights ago. That's how memorable it was. Yeah, and I was just the bit I did like from it was when the guy that gets stabbed in the neck by the shitty doctor in the first one says to Laurie, "This isn't about you. Michael's not obsessed with you. The doctor I thought that was a good little twist, and they should have played more. It wasn't really played on, and I kind of thought that's really cool. That for all these for 40 years she thought it's all about her. It's all about her, and it's just no. You were just some random babysitter. He's not obsessed with you. It just so happens he ended up going back there because the doctor took him there.
Yeah, that's all engineered.
Yeah, and I kind of thought that was cool. But as a film, the whole mob mentality thing, I think, was done a bit. I mean, visually fantastic. Laurie's daughter Karen. Why the fuck is she wearing a Christmas cardigan in this one? At Halloween. This is set the same night, but she's wearing a Christmas cardigan. Yeah, just a few things that just didn't sit right with me. Didn't sit right with me at all.
It's I mean, so I'd say the pros are it looks great. Some of the kills are great, are proper violent and over the top. The 1978 stuff was really good. That was probably my highlight.
That was really good.
At the same point, you've got Michael killing groups of people at a time. He appears from the shadows. That's what he's meant to do. In this one, I sort of understand that Halloween Kills. This is Michael Kills. This is him. He was at his most vulnerable at the end of the first film, and so this is kind of him taking revenge almost. I sort of get, but then it's like Michael isn't and shouldn't be Jason. Like, we have a killer that does that. That's just a walking killing machine. He takes way more damage in this, and it almost makes him stronger. So you then think, okay, so you ignore the sequels for the convoluted story and the almost going into supernatural elements, but then you're now starting to go into the supernatural elements.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he gets plugged in the chest like quite a few times.
Stabbed. Shoulder blades,
a couple of things that I did notice that I did like is that I didn't notice when we saw it in the cinema. I was only on the second viewing. It went back to how he does artistic kills. So you remember the old couple with the little whizzy doofer.
Is that what people normally do? Fly drones in house? Maybe.
Well, why not? But he's got the guy on there, and there's the knives there, and he's like, and he's kind of looking like it's quite. He's doing it's art. He's doing art, and I thought that's obviously a great throwback to the first one where he sort of looks at what he's done, and there's a sense of admiration. But there's the bit where the granddaughter, I forgot her name now, Alison, I think the character's name. Her douchebag boyfriend guy, who cheated on her in the other one, but they somehow made up in this one.
I suppose a kiss at a pie doesn't really matter so much when people getting butchered.
Principles, Terence, principles.
He,
Moral compass.
he apologised. Get over it.
But he. I'm sorry, baby. But yeah, she comes out and stabs. Look, she has the shotgun first. Goes to shoot him. Michael blocks it. The boyfriend, I think he's got pinned on the floor, and she stabs him in the stomach a couple of times, and he grabs her, and I don't know if it was my perception, but he looks at her, and I got the feeling he was like, that was quite fucking good, girl. Like, he was almost impressed with her. Then, oh no, actually, I'll throw you downstairs.
Yeah.
But he gives her a look, and I thought it was a look of, obviously can't see because he's got a mask on, but I thought he kind of like just looked at her for a little short time of fair play. I'll give you credit to that one.
Yeah.
And throws her downstairs and whatnot, and then the mum comes in and nicks his mask, and it just gets really silly again. But there were bits in it that I thought were bits of brilliance, but unfortunately they weren't as common throughout the film as, like when they're all chasing that little short guy who's clearly crazy in the hospital, thinking he was Michael, and it's like, and he jumps out the window, and the sheriff has no respect, has no control, and just pure mob mentality. And
it's like, my hat's been trampled on. Could this day get any worse?
I did notice that. So yeah, second. What's your, when you watched it a second time? What did you think?
So like I say, I like the kills, but I don't like how he's become Jason. Story wise, the evils dies tonight stuff. I mean, I get mob mentality rising up. It's the town. They're thinking this is happening to us again. We're not having it. But the whole catchphrase thing just did my nutting even more the second time watching it. The fact that they lure him out, and I like the little nods. I do like the little nods to the sequels. Like they had the masks from the Shamrock masks from 3. Laurie's daughter stabbing him in the back with a pitchfork, like in 5. Just little things like that. I thought they're kind of nice, and they start talking about him being almost like a curse and supernatural and whatnot, which I guess is kind of like a little nod to the Thorn stuff. But for me, I think I kind of rolled my eyes a bit watching it in the cinema at this point, and it was worse the second time round. After he's been drawn out and everyone's attacking him and battering the shit out of him, and then he gets stabbed between the shoulder blades after getting a few shots at the chest. And they had the voiceover talking about, his power comes from blah, 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 and all that bullshit. And then he just stands up and he mullers them. Now, I don't mind about him killing these iconic characters, because what other purpose will they kind of serve? Like, I don't want to see, like, a big team up, like, I don't know, like, a lot of those characters I did find quite irritating in Halloween Kills, so I didn't mind them dying so much, like Tommy Doyle. You're a hard nut. No, you're not. You're a nerd in weird science, and that's all you'll ever be. I'm joking.
It was Nurse Marion that got that. I was just like, oh man, you brought her back and killed her. It's the second film, I think, she got killed.
She got killed in H2O, And the kills were, like, decent. I mean, and also I did quite like when he kills the doctor and the nurse and Marion, and there's again they have the humour moments, like when the doctor and nurse are at the pub, and they go, "Oh, is that dickhead kid from across the street?" The kid whose name I think is Dara or something. He was the funniest kid in Halloween 2018.
Oh, he was brilliant. That little actor.
Like, yeah, he was so funny.
And his babysitter.
But and then there's the whole chase when Michael's chasing after Lindsay, and you see this tableau of where he's killed the kids, or he's killed people and put the masks on them. But there was something missing the first time I saw it in the cinema, and the repeat watch, I think So I'm going to say my score first on this one. I don't think it's great, but I would probably put it on par with Halloween 2 because I don't think Halloween 2 is great.
I agree. I'll put it in the. I'll put
Mm.
it there. Yeah. Again, there's good moments. It pushes on the storyline. The bits with Laurie are good. But yeah,
So there we have it, and we don't have to do any deciding what is the best out of the number fives because we've only got one number five, and
there
that's
can
the
only
original.
there can only be one number 5 in this.
There can be only one.
I was gonna say that.
Now, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about, and it's not out yet. It won't be out till later this year. I've heard some rumblings. I think they've wrapped production, but the third part of this trilogy, which they're in the postings like posters, they're heavily implying, which is actually kind of irritating me. They're heavily implying this is when Michael dies, which just makes me think, well, he's not going to die now, is he? Obviously, Halloween ends.
Mm.
Have you got any inkling where you think this one's going to go?
No, I've not. I've purposely not looked up anything, or for once, YouTube hasn't ruined anything for me yet. It can't be set on the same night, I don't think, because it's just too much to go on in one night. So I think this will be set a little bit, a couple of years after, or so. And rewatching Kills again, I just kind of thought this is gonna be a pure Laurie film of her. Exactly, her daughter's just been killed by the boogeyman, by the person she's feared the most. I sense they will go at. She will feel a failure as a mother, that psyche kind of route, because it kind of seems that that's what they've been done so far. It's all about the what's this effect having on people, and I think, for a mother to lose her daughter, to, if you ground it and say it's in reality, yeah, Laurie, she knows how to shoot. She set up that house and all them booby traps. It's gonna be war. But other than I that's the way I think it will go. It'd be interesting. I'm looking forward to it, and because you have to say it's got to be the last time that Jamie Lee is going to play this character as well.
Yeah.
I can't see her coming back.
No.
So this has got to be a big sign off for her as well, I think.
So so I haven't really seen too much at all official. I think it's sort of been confirmed it'll be a couple, 3 years maybe after the Halloween Kills. Hi, Poochie. In doing so, I hope they have some logical explanation of where Michael is, if he's been caught, which it doesn't look like he can, if he can just take down a whole bunch of people and it ain't no thing. Have some explanation for where he has been, and but I guess we'll see when we get there. One thing which I have heard, which I don't think is confirmed at all, I think it's more fan rumour. Did you get a whiff of his breath?
Yeah.
He's got bad dog breath. I'm gonna dog Bailey down off camera.
Oh,
He's very sweet though.
that little face though.
One thing that has been mentioned, which I just thought, who cares? And again, I don't think this is confirmed at all, but some theorising that we've had all these people, different people from the series, from the original film appearing. Will we see Michael's parents? I couldn't care less. They're going to be 80, 90 years old. I don't know what purpose that would serve, other than maybe he's gone to their new house because he can find a database wherever they moved to. I saw a headline for that on YouTube, and I just thought, why? What's the point? They seem like mild-mannered people for the 2 seconds we saw them in the original. What benefit is there to the story other than if he goes to kill them? And if he goes to kill them, I mean, you've then got questions of, did they ever visit him while he was locked away for 40 odd years or the previous 20 years, whatever.
Mm.
For me, don't really care about that.
No, that's the first I've heard if that's going to be a thing. I hope it's not, because it will raise more questions than, why did the reporters in 2018 one go to Laurie and not the parents? You go straight to the parents,
Yeah.
wouldn't you? If you were going to do some sort of documentary podcast, fucking care about the sole survivor. You go to the parents as well.
What was his upbringing like? Blah,
yeah.
blah, blah.
I feel if they were going to do that, they should have done that in 18.
Yeah.
Than do it in the last one. Like I said, for me, this one should be, there's very few things traumatic to a parent than losing a child, let alone a child being butchered by the boogeyman that's plagued her whole life. So, and I imagine the daughter's not going to be far off of the pace with. It might get, it might get a bit silly though, mightn't it?
Yeah, it's gonna. I'm interested to watch it because, of course, I will. Are we gonna see some weird sort of 2-on-1 team up? Because we've seen the granddaughter isn't afraid to fight back. She very much seems to parallel, her grandma Laurie. She didn't have the same upbringing her mother did, who was kind of trained from a young age and rebelled against that, and wanted normality, but still kind of remembered her training, which came in.
Didn't help her in the second one, did it?
Well, no. Why go? Oh yeah, well it's all fine now. I'm going to go up there and look out the window at the town that I've lived in forever. Why? That's stupid. Yeah, I think like Halloween Kills, I'm going to go and watching it. Hopefully, not knowing too much. Spoiled, but. I don't know. I mean, I'm interested to see where they're going to go with the finale, supposedly. But I don't have any kind of preconceptions or ideas other than I reckon Laurie will die, and I reckon that might happen maybe halfway through because the granddaughter does seem to be kind of getting geared to be the new final girl,
baton, isn't it?
Yeah, she kind of was the final girl in Halloween Kills, and yeah, I don't know. We shall see. But that brings us to the end of our Halloween discussion. Boy, howdy! This is going to be playing for almost 2 hours on the live stream. We just sat there, occasionally doing chat. Maybe I'll go watch. Probably just Halloween. Maybe not some of the other sequels during this time. While it's on the live stream. But it's been great, Dean. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
I say in studio, it's my back room, my back office.
Okay. Maybe reword that.
Moving on. I'll dub over it. I'll just go and put some voiceover.
I'd love to come in your back room.
Cut it. Where can people find you on your socials and music? Like, have you got anything you want to plug?
I didn't think that far ahead.
You've got a YouTube channel?
I have a YouTube channel, yeah. Dean Jovi on YouTube. Just original songs, some covers, I think. I can't remember what's on my YouTube. And other than that, yeah, you can see me in Harvest of the Dead 2, Devil in the Woods. And the reason for the long hair is I've grown it for my new role for the hippie I'm playing in that
we're going to do at some point.
At some point. That's what I say. I've grown my hair to play a hippie. Yeah. I'm on IMDb.
He's on IMDb as well.
I'll just impress with that, to be honest.
Right, cool. Well, back to me sitting watching the live stream. See you later.
Hello, other Terence.
Hi, other Dean and other Terence. Well, yeah, that was a lot of fun. I've enjoyed obviously chatting throughout that with everyone watching. I hope you've enjoyed my discussion with Dean as a good friend of mine. Definitely check out his music. Dean Jovi has done lots. He's got an album coming out, date to be announced, called Junction. But yeah, check him out. Search from, I think it's just Dean Jovi on YouTube. You'll find his page. Right. Oh Lord, as I said at the end, that's a bumper a bumper episode. I want to apologise. I feel like I'm always apologising for the audio for some to some degree on my show, and I realise I must be peaking because I've jumped it up quite loud. So let's just drop that down slightly. Yeah, no idea why the mics kept doubling up. I did have two microphones in a room in close proximity. I don't know. You probably heard my dog jingle jangling around a few times, and also knobheads in the hallway. Well, I think they're nice enough, just very loud, and my front flat door doesn't seem to be that soundproof. It's gonna be a weekend project, I think. But we had a lot of fun tonight. Now, this show was going to be going out live in a few weeks' time, as I had plans for this evening and plans for the next few weeks. But I do have the next few weeks' shows planned out. So next week, we're going to have a member of the chat, also my sister, Carrie is Cool 34. She is very involved in the paranormal community, I suppose you could say. She's very in touch with all the paranormal stuff. I don't know all the lingo. I'm not going to pretend that I do. But what we're going to do is we're going to be chatting about a number of films and the true life cases behind them. So not quite the chat that we had with Crimson Mel when we were looking at the paranormal reality behind certain horror films. This time we're going to be looking at the true life cases that horror films are based on, whether loosely or whether accurately. Expect The Conjuring films, but we'll have a confirmed case list in the week. I'll check it on the Discord, check it on the Twitter. Speaking of those, Discord, ministry-of-horror. Twitter is ministry_horror. Facebook is Ministry of Horror. We are found on the MOS network. Check out Ministry of Slam, goes live every Sunday. Lawrence Games a few times in the week. He has his Red Dead stream, I believe, on Wednesdays. And also he streams his new, I'm awful with the name, TEW, I think it's the wrestling simulator that he started doing. That's a really entertaining show. I've seen a couple of the episodes so far. Definitely worth a watch. And also Retro Chat on Wednesday, 7 p.m. But yeah, and other than the Carrier's Cool 34 show, another friend of mine, actor, I don't know what to call him because he has a number of different names. He's an electronic musician under the name Lasers. I'll write it in chat, and you can always check him out on Spotify. Yeah, I think that's how it's spelled. Lasers. Actor name also Olas Carter, Nicholas Carter, Nicholas Pierce. He has a number of different names, but he's a very cool guy. He's really entertaining, and he's someone that I've really loved working on films with. He's acted in a couple of films that I've worked on behind the scenes. We're going to be looking in a few weeks with Lasers, Olas Carter, Nick Pierce, at the paranoia in horror films. So think Invasion of the Body Snatchers, think The Thing. We're going to bring together a list, maybe top 3, top 5 of our favourite films and compare them and discuss them. Kind of similar to the top 5 zombie films that I did with Erratic Agent. Definitely worth checking out on the YouTube or podcast streams if you haven't heard that show yet. We had a really good discussion, and Erratic Agent is definitely someone I'd like to get back on the show for sure. As with all the guests so far, I've had a lot of fun. So with that, I'm quite tired now. I've got to make lunch for work tomorrow. Stupid o'clock. And I've got to get this out on the podcast streams. So podcast listeners, hopefully I did this quite quickly and you'll be able to listen to this on Wednesday the 30th of March. If not, well, I'll try my best. Thanks very much for watching the show, and I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.